First contact. The gleaming spires of Galactic Council headquarters pierced the pink sky of Centauri Prime as Ambassador Sarah Chen's shuttle touched down on the landing pad. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the momentous task ahead. As Earth's first official representative to the Council, the weight of humanity's future rested on her shoulders. "Ready, girl?" Sarah murmured, glancing at the large crate beside her. A soft whine answered from within. The shuttle's hatch hissed open. Sarah stood, smoothing her crisp Navy uniform, and strode confidently down the ramp. A delegation of alien officials waited to greet her. An assortment of beings with various numbers of limbs, eyes, and other appendages. At their head stood a tall, willowy creature with iridescent purple skin. "Welcome to Centauri Prime, Ambassador Chen," the alien said in a melodious voice. "I am High Counselor Zixara. We are honored to receive Earth's first emissary." Sarah bowed respectfully. "The honor is mine, High Counselor. I look forward to fostering understanding and cooperation between our peoples." Zixara's compound eyes flicked to the hovering crate behind Sarah. "I see you've brought some luggage. We can have that taken to your quarters." "Actually," Sarah interrupted gently, "this isn't luggage. Allow me to introduce my companion." She tapped a code into the crate's control panel. The sides fell away, revealing a large, shaggy creature with a lolling tongue and wagging tail. "This is Nova," Sarah said proudly as the golden retriever padded to her side. "My dog." The alien delegation recoiled in shock. Zixara's wings fluttered in agitation. "Ambassador, what is the meaning of this?" the High Counselor demanded. "You've brought a dangerous animal into our most sacred halls of government." Sarah laid a calming hand on Nova's head. "I assure you, Nova is perfectly safe. She's highly trained and has been my loyal companion for years." But the aliens continued to gape in horror at the dog. Sarah realized this first meeting was already veering wildly off course. "Perhaps we should move this discussion inside," she suggested diplomatically. "I'd be happy to explain Earth's customs regarding animal companions." Zixara's antennae twitched uncertainly. "Very well, but that creature must be restrained at all times." Sarah nodded, producing a leash from her pocket. As they entered the council building, she caught snippets of the alien's stunned whispers. "Did you see those teeth? It's nearly as big as a Cronin battle beast. How can the human control such a monster?" Sarah sighed inwardly. She'd known introducing the concept of pets to the galactic community would be challenging, but she hadn't anticipated quite this level of shock and revulsion. Clearly, she had her work cut out for her. The delegation led Sarah and Nova to a grand chamber with soaring ceilings and walls of shifting light. Representatives from dozens of alien races filled the tiered seats, their curious eyes fixed on the human and her furry companion. High Counselor Zixara took a position at the central podium. "Esteemed colleagues, I present Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth. She comes before us today to petition for humanity's inclusion in the Galactic Council." A chorus of mutters and chirps filled the chamber. Sarah stepped forward, projecting calm confidence despite her nerves. "Greetings, honored representatives," she began. "On behalf of Earth and all humankind, I thank you for this opportunity. We are a young species on the galactic stage, but we are eager to learn from your collected wisdom and to contribute our own unique perspectives to this esteemed body." She paused, gauging the room's reaction. Most of the aliens seemed attentive, if wary. A few were still eyeing Nova with obvious distrust. "I understand my companion has caused some consternation," Sarah continued. "On Earth, it is common for humans to form close bonds with certain animals. We call them pets. They provide companionship, emotional support, and often practical assistance." An insectoid being in the front row clicked its mandibles. "You claim mastery over lesser creatures for your own amusement. This is barbaric." Sarah shook her head. "Not mastery, partnership. The bond between human and pet is one of mutual affection and respect." To demonstrate, she turned to Nova. "Sit," she commanded gently. The dog immediately complied, looking up at Sarah with adoring eyes. A ripple of astonishment passed through the alien audience. As you can see, Sarah explained, Nova is highly intelligent and obedient, but more importantly, she is my friend. Her presence brings me comfort in unfamiliar situations, like standing before this august body today. She smiled, trying to inject some levity into the tense atmosphere. I assure you, Nova is far less dangerous than many of the weapons your security officers are carrying, unless you count her rather potent puppy dog eyes. A few of the aliens tittered nervously at her attempt at humor. Others still looked skeptical or confused. An avian being with brilliant plumage spoke up. Ambassador, while your pet is certainly intriguing, we must focus on the greater issues at hand. What does humanity offer the Galactic Council? Why should we consider your petition for membership? Sarah nodded, glad to move the conversation to more substantive matters. Of course, Counselor. Humanity may be young, but we are innovative, adaptable, and eager to learn. Our scientific and technological progress has advanced rapidly in recent centuries. We've developed faster than light travel, clean fusion energy, and medical breakthroughs that could benefit many Council races. She went on to outline some of Earth's key achievements and resources. As she spoke, Sarah could see interest kindling in the eyes of many representatives. Even those who had recoiled from Nova were now leaning forward, captivated by the potential humanity represented. But not everyone was convinced. A hulking reptilian being suddenly slammed a clawed fist on its desk. Pretty words, human, it snarled. But how do we know we can trust your kind? You bring beasts into our midst and speak of peace, yet your history is rife with war and destruction. How can primitives like you contribute anything of value to the Council? Murmurs of agreement rippled through parts of the chamber. Sarah felt a flicker of alarm. She'd anticipated skepticism, but this open hostility threatened to derail everything. Before she could formulate a response, Nova suddenly stood and padded towards the agitated reptilian. Gasps and cries of alarm echoed through the chamber. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. What was Nova doing? But the dog simply sat in front of the alien's desk, gazing up with soft brown eyes. Then she extended a paw, as Sarah had taught her to shake hands. The reptilian stared in bewilderment at the offered paw. Slowly, hesitantly, it reached out one massive clawed hand. Nova placed her paw in the alien's palm and wagged her tail. A hush fell over the assembly. The tension that had been building dissipated in an instant. Sarah seized the moment. Counselors, I cannot undo humanity's past mistakes, but I can offer you this, our boundless curiosity, our drive to explore and understand, our capacity for growth and change. And yes, our ability to form connections even across vast gaps of biology and culture. She gestured to Nova and the reptilian alien, still frozen in their unlikely handshake. If a simple Earth dog can bridge the divide between our species in mere moments, imagine what we might accomplish together given time and open minds. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Even High Counselor Zixera looked impressed. You have certainly given us much to consider, Ambassador Chen, Zixera said. The Council will deliberate on your petition. In the meantime, perhaps you would consent to allowing some of our xenobiologists to study your Nova? Many of us are quite curious to learn more about Earth's animals. Sarah smiled, sensing the tide had turned in humanity's favor. It would be our pleasure, High Counselor. Nova and I look forward to fostering greater understanding between our peoples. As the session adjourned, Sarah knelt to ruffle Nova's fur. Good girl, she murmured. Looks like humanity might have a chance after all. Thanks to you. Nova's tail wagged happily. Ambassador Chen knew the road ahead would not be easy, but with loyal friends like Nova by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might bring. Cultural clash. In the weeks following her initial presentation to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Sarah Chen found herself in a whirlwind of diplomatic meetings, cultural exchanges, and scientific demonstrations. Nova, her golden retriever, had become an unexpected sensation among the alien races. Xenobiologists clamored for the chance to study the dog, while diplomats peppered Sarah with questions about Earth's customs regarding animal companions. But not everyone was thrilled with humanity's furry ambassador. Sarah stood before the council chambers once again, Nova at her side. The mood was tense, a far cry from the cautious optimism of their first meeting. High Counselor Zixara's voice rang out, tinged with frustration. Ambassador Chen, we have received numerous complaints from various delegations regarding your pet. While some find Nova fascinating, others are deeply uncomfortable with her presence in the council headquarters. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. I understand, High Counselor. Change can be difficult, especially when it challenges long-held beliefs. What specific concerns have been raised? An avian being with brilliant blue plumage spoke up. The Tiskri delegation finds the very concept of pets to be abhorrent. They view it as a form of slavery. The Volcran representatives, added a gelatinous entity, its voice bubbling, are terrified that Nova will attack them. They refuse to attend sessions if she is present. Sarah took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. I assure you, Nova poses no threat to anyone here. As for the concerns about pets being a form of slavery, I would invite the Tiskri to observe Nova's behavior. She is free to leave at any time, yet she chooses to stay by my side. As if to emphasize the point, Nova nuzzled Sarah's hand affectionately. Furthermore, Sarah continued, the bond between humans and their animal companions has been a crucial part of our development as a species. Dogs like Nova have served as protectors, hunters, and friends for thousands of years. They've helped us survive and thrive. The reptilian counselor who had initially been hostile towards Sarah now leaned forward, its scales shimmering. Be that as it may, human, your customs are causing disruption. Perhaps it would be best if Nova remained in your quarters during official functions. Sarah felt a flicker of frustration, but kept her voice level. With respect, Counselor, Nova's presence here is about more than just Earth's customs. She represents humanity's ability to form connections across species lines, a skill that I believe will be valuable to the Council. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some nodded in agreement, while others huffed in disagreement. High Counselor Zixara raised a hand for silence. A fair point, Ambassador. However, we must find a way to address the concerns of all member races. Perhaps a compromise can be reached. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice echoed. Warning. Containment breach in Xenobiology Lab 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Panic erupted in the council chamber. Aliens of all shapes and sizes began rushing towards the exits, their voices raised in alarm. Sarah's training as a diplomat kicked in. Everyone, please remain calm. She shouted above the din. Let's evacuate in an orderly fashion. But her words were lost in the chaos. In the stampede, a small, childlike alien with delicate tendrils was knocked to the ground. The crowd, blind with panic, threatened to trample the helpless being. Without hesitation, Sarah sprinted towards the fallen alien, Nova right beside her. The dog seemed to instinctively understand the danger. She positioned herself over the alien, creating a protective barrier with her body, while Sarah helped the being to its feet. Are you all right? Sarah asked, steadying the shaken alien. The being's tendrils quivered. Yes. Thank you, human. And thank your Nova. Sarah smiled, but there was no time for further pleasantries. The alarms were still blaring, and the evacuation was far from complete. Nova, help, Sarah commanded, pointing towards the panicking crowd. The golden retriever sprang into action. She began herding the aliens towards the exits, her sharp barks cutting through the chaos and drawing attention. Sarah was amazed to see how quickly the various races responded to Nova's guidance, their fear of the dog overshadowed by the more immediate threat. As they neared the exit, a terrifying roar echoed through the chamber. Sarah turned to see a massive reptilian creature burst through the far doors. Its scales were a mottled green, and razor-sharp claws adorned its 6 limbs. Acidic drool dripped from its fanged maw, sizzling where it hit the floor. A Chronax. Someone screamed. We're doomed. Sarah's mind raced. She'd read about Chronax in the Council's xenobiology database, apex predators from a distant world, known for their ferocity and near-impenetrable hide. How had one escaped containment? The Chronax's yellow eyes scanned the room, settling on a group of smaller aliens cowering near an overturned desk. It let out another bone-chilling roar and charge. Without thinking, Sarah whistled sharply. Nova. Distract. The golden retriever didn't hesitate. She raced towards the Chronax, barking furiously. The massive predator skidded to a halt, confused by this new, noisy threat. Sarah used the momentary distraction to usher the trapped aliens to safety. But now Nova was in terrible danger, darting around the Chronax's clashing claws and snapping jaws. Nova, retreat, Sarah called out, her heart in her throat. But before Nova could respond, the Chronax's tail whipped around, catching the dog in the side and sending her flying. Nova yelped in pain as she hit the wall and crumpled to the floor. No, Sarah cried out. She started towards her fallen companion, but strong arms held her back. Ambassador, you can't. It was the reptilian counselor, its earlier hostility replaced by genuine concern. That beast will tear you apart. Sarah struggled against the alien's grip. I can't leave her. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chaos. Stand down, human. We will handle this. A squad of beings in sleek armor strode into the chamber, wielding what looked like energy weapons. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if they shared a single mind. The collective, the reptilian counselor, breathed. We're saved. Sarah watched in awe as the collective engaged the Chronax. Their tactics were flawless, herding the beast away from Nova and the remaining civilians. Energy blasts struck the creature's tough hide, slowly wearing it down. But even as the collective gained the upper hand, Sarah's focus remained on Nova. The dog wasn't moving. Please, Sarah begged the reptilian counselor. Let me go to her. She needs me. The alien studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Go, but be careful, human. Sarah rushed to Nova's side, tears streaming down her face. She gently stroked the dog's fur, feeling for signs of life. To her immense relief, she felt the steady rise and fall of Nova's chest. Good girl, Sarah whispered. You're going to be okay. We both are. As the sounds of battle died down, Sarah became aware of a crowd gathering around her and Nova. She looked up to see aliens of all races watching with a mixture of curiosity and concern. High Counselor Zixera stepped forward, its compound eyes fixed on Sarah and Nova. Ambassador Chen, I believe we owe you and your companion a great debt. Your quick thinking and Nova's bravery saved many lives today. Sarah managed a weak smile. Thank you, High Counselor. But Nova needs medical attention. Is there someone who can help? A chorus of voices rang out, offering assistance. Sarah was touched by the sudden outpouring of support from races that had, just hours ago, viewed Nova with suspicion or outright hostility. As a medical team carefully lifted Nova onto a hovering stretcher, Sarah felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to see the small alien Nova had protected during the initial panic. You're Nova, the being said, its voice filled with wonder. She is not just a pet, is she? She is family. Sarah nodded, too choked up to speak. The alien's tendrils waved in a gesture Sarah interpreted as a smile. Perhaps we have much to learn from humanity after all. As Sarah followed the medical team out of the chamber, she realized that this crisis, terrifying as it had been, might have just opened the door for humanity's acceptance into the galactic community. Nova's actions had demonstrated the true power of the human-animal bond in a way no words ever could. The road ahead would still be challenging, But for the first time since arriving on Centauri Prime, Sarah felt truly hopeful about humanity's future among the stars. Proving ground. The days following the Kronax incident were a blur for Ambassador Sarah Chen. She spent most of her time in the medical bay, watching over Nova as the golden retriever recovered from her injuries. The advanced alien medical technology worked wonders, and Nova was soon back on her feet, tail wagging as enthusiastically as ever. What surprised Sarah most was the steady stream of alien visitors who came to check on Nova's progress. Many brought gifts, exotic treats, toys made from materials Sarah couldn't even identify, and in one memorable instance, a collar that supposedly granted telepathic abilities, though Sarah politely declined that one. As Nova's strength returned, so did the political machinations of the Galactic Council. Sarah knew that while Nova's heroism had won them some goodwill, humanity's position was still far from secure. It was High Counselor Zixera who finally broached the subject, cornering Sarah in a quiet corridor outside the medical bay. Ambassador Chen, the willowy alien said, its iridescent wings fluttering nervously, the Council has been discussing your petition for Earth's membership. Sarah straightened, sensing the weight of the moment. And what has the Council decided, High Counselor? Zixera's compound eyes blinked rapidly. There is still much debate. While many were impressed by your and Nova's actions during the crisis, others argue that one isolated incident is not enough to prove humanity's readiness for full Council membership. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. I understand. What do you propose? The Council has agreed to put humanity to a test. Zixera explained. A proving ground, if you will. We have a situation that requires a unique approach, one that we believe humans, with their adaptability and unconventional problem-solving skills, might be uniquely suited to handle. Sarah's curiosity was piqued. What kind of situation? Zixera gestured for Sarah to follow. They walked to a secure briefing room, where a holographic display flickered to life, showing a desolate, rocky planet. This is Novus Petra, Zixera explained. A mining colony on the outer rim of Council space. It's rich in rare minerals crucial to our most advanced technologies. But recently, all contact with the colony has been lost. Sarah frowned. A communication failure. We thought so at first, Zixera continued. But the last transmissions we received were disturbing. There was talk of strange occurrences, miners going missing, inexplicable equipment failures. We sent an investigative team, but they've also gone silent. And you want me to investigate? Sarah asked, already seeing where this was going. Zixera nodded. You and Nova. Your skills as a diplomat, combined with Nova's unique abilities, might provide insights our conventional teams have missed. Plus, your willingness to risk yourselves for others during the Kronax incident has not gone unnoticed. Sarah considered the proposal. It was risky, no doubt, but it was also an opportunity to prove humanity's worth to the Council. I'll need to consult with my superiors on Earth, Sarah said, but speaking personally, I'm willing to take on this mission. Zixera's antennae twitched in what Sarah had come to recognize as a sign of relief. Excellent. We'll provide you with all the information we have, as well as a ship and any equipment you might need. As Sarah left the briefing room, her mind was already racing with preparations. She found Nova waiting patiently outside, and knelt to ruffle the dog's fur. Well, girl, she murmured, looks like we've got another adventure ahead of us. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the sleek Council ship, the Stellar Envoy, as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Novus Petra. The rocky planet loomed large in the view screen, its surface a patchwork of gray and rust red. Nova sat alertly by Sarah's side, seeming to sense the importance of the moment. The dog wore a specially designed suit that would protect her from the planet's harsh environment and allow her to communicate any distress to Sarah. Scanning for life signs and active technology, reported Kivex, the ship's Volcrin navigator. His gelatinous form rippled with concentration as he interfaced with the ship's systems. Anything. Sarah asked, trying to keep the tension out of her voice. Kevex's eye stalks swiveled towards her. Very faint energy readings from the main colony site. No clear life signs, but there's significant interference. We'll need to get closer for a more accurate scan. Sarah nodded. Take us in, but maintain a safe distance. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. As the stellar envoy descended through Nova Spectra's thin atmosphere, Sarah couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The colony structures came into view. Prefabricated buildings and massive mining equipment, all seeming eerily undamaged and yet utterly lifeless. Still no response to our hails, reported Tizin, the ship's Tuskegee communications officer, her feathers ruffled in agitation. Ambassador, I don't like this. It's too quiet. Sarah agreed, but they had a mission to complete. Prepare the landing shuttle. Kevex, Tizin, you're with me. The rest of the crew will remain on board, ready to extract us if necessary. As they boarded the shuttle, Nova pressed close to Sarah's side. The ambassador scratched behind the dog's ears, drawing comfort from her steady presence. Don't worry, girl, Sarah murmured. We've faced tough situations before. We'll get through this one too. The shuttle touched down on the outskirts of the main colony complex. As the hatch opened, Sarah was struck by the eerie stillness. There was no wind, no sound of machinery. Not even the crunch of gravel under their feet seemed to carry in the thin air. Life support systems are functional, Kevex reported, consulting a handheld scanner. Atmosphere is within acceptable parameters, but I'd recommend keeping our suits on for now. Sarah nodded, then turned to Nova. All right, girl. Let's see what that nose of yours can tell us. She gave the hand signal they practiced, and Nova began to scout the area, her nose working furiously as she took in the alien sense. Sarah and the others followed closely, weapons at the ready. They made their way through the deserted streets of the colony. Everything looked pristine, as if the inhabitants had simply vanished mid-task. Half-eaten meals sat on tables in the mess hall. Tools lay scattered around partially disassembled mining equipment. It's like everyone just disappeared, Tizin whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. Suddenly, Nova's ears perked up. She let out a soft whine, their agreed-upon signal for detecting something unusual. What is it, girl? Sarah asked, kneeling beside the dog. Nova pawed at a section of the street. At first, Sarah saw nothing unusual, but then she noticed a faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising from pavement on a hot day. Kevex, can you scan this area? Sarah asked. The Volcran moved closer, his scanner humming. Unusual energy readings, Ambassador. It's similar to the background radiation of the planet, but far more concentrated. And there's something else, some kind of spatial distortion. Before Sarah could respond, the shimmering in the air intensified. Nova barked in alarm, backing away. Sarah reached for the dog, but her hand passed right through Nova's form. What the? Sarah gasped, but her words were cut short as the world seemed to twist around her. For a moment, she felt as if she was being stretched in 1,000 directions at once. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sensation stopped. Sarah found herself standing in what looked like the same street, but everything was off. The buildings were weathered and crumbling, the sky a sickly green instead of the rust red they'd seen from orbit. And she was alone. No Nova, no Kevex, no Tizin. Hello, Sarah called out, her voice sounding flat and dulled in the strange atmosphere. Is anyone there? A figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby building. It looked human-like, but its movements were jerky, unnatural. As it drew closer, Sarah saw that its skin was gray and lifeless, its eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. The figure spoke, its voice a harsh, mechanical rasp. Welcome, Ambassador Chen. We've been expecting you. Sarah's mind raced. Somehow, she knew that humanity's future in the galactic community now hinged on how she handled this bizarre and terrifying situation. With Nova and her team seemingly lost, she was truly on her own. Drawing on every ounce of her diplomatic training and human resilience, Sarah squared her shoulders and faced the strange being. "I'm here to help," she said firmly. "Please, tell me what's happened to this colony." The figure's glowing eyes seemed to bore into her soul. "Help," it said, a note of bitter amusement in its mechanical voice. "Oh, Ambassador, you have no idea what you've walked into, but you're about to find out." As more shadowy figures emerged from the ruined buildings, Sarah realized that her mission, and humanity's trial, had taken a turn she could never have anticipated. Whatever had happened on Novus Petra, it was clear that the fate of not just the missing colonists, but perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested in her hands. Alliance forged. Sarah's mind raced as she faced the strange, mechanical beings surrounding her. Her diplomatic training kicked in, urging her to find common ground, to establish communication. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth," she said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I've come on behalf of the Galactic Council to investigate the situation on Novus Petra." "Who are you, and what has happened here?" The lead figure tilted its head, the blue glow of its eyes flickering. "We are what remains of the Novus Petra colony, or perhaps what the colony has become." Another being stepped forward, its movements smoother, almost fluid. "We were miners, scientists, engineers. Now we are more and less." Sarah frowned, trying to piece together the puzzle. "You've been transformed somehow. Was it something on the planet?" The first being let out a harsh mechanical laugh. "Not the planet, Ambassador. Something far older, far more powerful. We discovered an artifact deep in the mines. We thought it was just another mineral deposit. It spoke to us." Another voice chimed in, this one sounding almost wistful. "Promised us knowledge, power, immortality. We didn't understand the price." Sarah's diplomatic mask slipped for a moment, horror and pity washing over her face. "What did it do to you?" The lead figure gestured around at the decaying landscape. "It merged us with our machines, with the very rock of this planet. We are no longer simply organic or simply mechanical. We exist in multiple phases of reality simultaneously." Suddenly, Sarah understood. "The spatial distortions, the disappearances. You're shifting between dimensions." "Clever human," the being said, a note of approval in its mechanical voice. "Yes, we phase in and out of your reality. But we are trapped, Ambassador. Trapped in this limbo between flesh and machine, between dimensions." Sarah's mind was reeling, but she forced herself to focus. These beings, however changed, had once been people. They needed help. "What can I do?" she asked. "How can we help you?" The beings exchanged looks, their glowing eyes flickering in what seemed to be their form of communication. "You cannot help us directly," the lead figure finally said. "But you can prevent this from spreading. The artifact that changed us, it hungers. It will not be satisfied with just our small colony." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "It's a threat to the entire galaxy." "Precisely." Another being confirmed. "It must be destroyed. But we cannot approach it. Our transformed state makes us compatible. It would absorb us entirely." Sarah nodded, understanding dawning. "But I could get close to it. Organic life forms might be able to resist its influence long enough to destroy it." "Yes," the lead figure said, "but it will not be easy. The artifact defends itself. And to reach it, you must navigate the dimensional shifts. Your companions, they are lost in other phases of reality." Sarah's heart clenched. "Nova, my team, they're alive." "For now," the being confirmed. "But time moves differently in the other phases. You must act quickly." Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Tell me what I need to do." The beings proceeded to explain the location of the artifact deep in the mines and the dimensional anomalies she would need to navigate. They provided her with a crude device that would help her phase between realities, warning her that its effects were temporary and unpredictable. As Sarah prepared to leave, the lead figure caught her arm. Its touch was cold, sending an electric tingle through her suit. "Ambassador," it said, its mechanical voice somehow conveying urgency. "If you succeed, it will mean our end. Without the artifact's influence, we cannot maintain this state of being." Sarah met its glowing gaze, understanding the unspoken request. "I'll make sure the galaxy knows your story," she promised. "Your sacrifice won't be forgotten." With that, she activated the phase device and felt reality twist around her once more. Sarah lost count of how many times she shifted between dimensions as she made her way through the mines. Each reality she passed through showed a different facet of Nova Spectra's tragedy. Pristine corridors echoing with ghostly voices, crumbling ruins overrun with strange, crystalline growths, eerie landscapes that defied the laws of physics. In one phase, she found HFY, the Volcran navigator's gelatinous form frozen in a state of terrified flux. In another, she rescued Tizin, the Tiscary officer's feathers molting rapidly as her body tried to adapt to the dimensional shifts. But it was the whine of a familiar bark that nearly broke Sarah's composure. She found Nova cowering in a twisted version of the colony's main square. The loyal dog clearly terrified, but overjoyed to see her human companion. "Good girl," Sarah murmured, hugging Nova tightly. "I'm so glad you're okay. Now let's finish this mission and go home." With her team reassembled, Sarah pressed on towards the heart of the mine. The dimensional shifts grew more frequent, reality seeming to fracture around them. Nova's keen senses proved invaluable. The dog somehow able to sense the safest paths through the chaos. Finally, they reached a vast cavern deep beneath the planet's surface. And there, pulsing with an otherworldly light, they saw it, the artifact. It was a crystalline structure, constantly shifting and reforming, tendrils of energy reaching out as if to draw them in. "By the cosmic egg," Tizin breathed, her feathers standing on end. "What is that thing?" "Nothing good," Sarah replied grimly. She could feel its pull, a whisper in her mind promising power and knowledge beyond imagining. She shook her head, forcing the thoughts away. "We need to destroy it. Any ideas?" HFY's eye stalks swiveled as he analyzed the artifact. "Its energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen. Our weapons might not be enough." Sarah's mind raced, remembering her conversations with the transformed colonists. "It feeds on technology, on the merger of organic and mechanical. What if we overloaded it? Gave it too much to process at once?" Tizin caught on quickly. "The phase devices. If we could modify them to channel energy directly into the artifact. It might cause a cascade failure," HFY finished. "It's risky, but it could work." They set to work quickly, keenly aware that time was running out. The dimensional shifts were becoming more violent, reality itself seeming to tear at the seams around them. As HFY and Tizin made the final modifications to the phase devices, Sarah knelt beside Nova. The loyal dog looked up at her, brown eyes full of trust. "You've been so brave, girl," Sarah said softly, scratching behind Nova's ears. "But I need you to do one more thing for me. When I give the signal, I need you to take this device and run. Get as far away from here as you can. Can you do that for me?" Nova whined softly, clearly reluctant to leave Sarah's side. But years of training and trust won out. The dog gave a small bark of affirmation. "That's my girl," Sarah said, blinking back tears. She stood, turning to her alien companions. "Are we ready?" HFY and Tizin nodded solemnly. They all understood the risks. There was a good chance that detonating the modified phase devices so close to the artifact would trap them in this dimensional limbo forever. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. "For the colonists. For the galaxy. Let's end this." They approached the artifact, feeling its pull growing stronger with each step. Sarah activated the modified phase device, its energy output surging. The artifact's pulsing quickened, tendrils of light reaching out hungrily. "Now, Nova," Sarah shouted. "Run." The golden retriever hesitated for just a moment, then grabbed the spare device in her mouth and took off, disappearing into the tunnels. Sarah, Kvex, and Tizin pressed forward, fighting against the artifact's pull. They could feel their very atoms wanting to split apart, to merge with the crystalline structure before them. Together, Sarah yelled over the rising hum of energy. As one, they thrust the overloading phase devices into the heart of the artifact. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound that seemed to tear the very fabric of reality, the artifact began to fracture. Light exploded outward, blinding in its intensity. Sarah felt herself being pulled apart, consciousness fragmenting across 1,000 realities. Her last coherent thought was a hope that Nova had made it to safety, that her loyal companion would survive to tell their story. Then, everything went white. New horizons. The explosion that rocked Novus Petra was visible from orbit, a burst of multicolored energy that seemed to briefly warp the very fabric of space around the planet. On board the stellar envoy, the skeleton crew left behind watched in horror and awe, fearing the worst for their comrades on the surface. But as the energy dissipated and long-range scanners began functioning again, they picked up a faint but steady signal. A locator beacon, standard issue for all Galactic Council expeditions. And alongside it, a familiar biosignature that made the crew's hearts soar with hope. On the planet's surface, Nova limped out of the mine entrance, the emergency beacon clutched gently in her mouth. The golden retriever's fur was singed, her protective suit torn in places, but her brown eyes were alert and determined. She had a mission to complete. As soon as the stellar envoy shuttle landed, Nova bounded towards it, ignoring her injuries. She barked insistently, turning back towards the mine entrance. The rescue team understood immediately. There were survivors to be found. Deep in the cavern, where the artifact had once pulsed with malevolent energy, the rescue team found them. Ambassador Sarah Chen, Kvex, and Tizin lay unconscious but alive, their bodies showing strange energy readings that baffled the medical staff. As they were rushed back to the stellar envoy and put into stasis pods for the journey back to Centauri Prime, none of them stirred. Their minds, it seemed, were far away, perhaps still navigating the fractured realities they had experienced. Nova refused to leave Sarah's side, maintaining a constant vigil by her stasis pod throughout the journey. The news of what had transpired on Novus Petra spread quickly through the Galactic Council. The threat that had been averted, the sacrifice of the colonists, the bravery of the Earth Ambassador and her team. It all became the subject of intense debate and discussion. Weeks passed. In the advanced medical facilities of Centauri Prime, Sarah, Kvex, and Tizin slowly recovered. Their bodies had been altered on a fundamental level, either exposure to the artifact and its destruction. They could now perceive and even manipulate quantum probabilities in ways that defied conventional understanding. As Sarah finally regained full consciousness, the first thing she saw was Nova's concerned face peering down at her. The ambassador buried her face in the dog's fur, overcome with emotion. "Good girl," Sarah whispered. "You did it. You saved us all." High Counselor Zixera visited Sarah as soon as she was cleared for visitors. The willowy alien's compound eyes shimmered with what Sarah now recognized as deep respect. "Ambassador Chen," Zixera said, its voice filled with warmth. "You have done the galaxy a great service. The Council is unanimous in its decision. Earth will be granted full membership, effective immediately." Sarah sat up straighter, her heart racing. "Thank you, High Counselor. Earth is honored to join the galactic community." Zixera's antennae twitched in amusement. "Oh, it goes beyond that, Ambassador. Your actions, and those of your companions, have opened up entirely new avenues of scientific and philosophical inquiry. The changes you've undergone, they could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." Sarah nodded slowly, still coming to terms with her new abilities. She could see probability clouds shifting around Zixera, potential futures branching and merging. "We'll need to proceed carefully," Sarah said. "This kind of power, in the wrong hands, could be devastating." "Agreed," Zixera said. which is why the Council would like to propose a new initiative, with you at its head. A task force dedicated to exploring these new frontiers, protecting the galaxy from similar threats, and fostering cooperation between all sentient species. Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. She glanced down at Nova, who looked up at her with unwavering trust. "I accept," Sarah said firmly. "On one condition. Nova is recognized as a full member of the team. She's proven her worth 100 times over." Sarah's wings fluttered in what Sarah had come to recognize as laughter. "My dear Ambassador, I do believe that was never in question. Your Nova has become something of a celebrity among Council races. There's already talk of establishing diplomatic animal exchange programs." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "Well, girl," she said to Nova, scratching behind her ears, "looks like we've started quite the interstellar trend." As Sarah left, Sarah stood by the window of her recovery room, gazing out at the glittering spires of the Galactic Council headquarters. Nova pressed against her leg, a comforting presence as always. The future stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. The changes they had undergone would take time to fully understand and control. The trauma of what they had experienced on Novus Petra would not fade quickly. But as Sarah looked down at her faithful companion, she felt a surge of optimism. Humanity had proven itself. They had faced the unknown with courage and compassion, forging alliances and finding strength in their bonds, not just with each other, but with the loyal animals who had stood by their side throughout history. "Well, Nova," Sarah said softly, "ready for our next adventure?" Nova's tail wagged enthusiastically, her brown eyes shining with excitement and love. Together, human and dog turned their gaze to the stars, ready to face whatever the vast, wondrous, and sometimes terrifying galaxy might throw at them next. For in each other, and in the bonds they had forged across species and worlds, they had found a strength greater than any cosmic artifact or interdimensional threat. The future, with all its challenges and marvels, awaited. And thanks to the unbreakable bond between a woman and her dog, humanity would face that future not alone, but as part of a grand interstellar family.